She was on her knees. Again, this time she was sobbing. Actually, last time wasn't quite the same as this time, except that both times she was on her knees, that was the same. Okay? Both times she was naked. True, this time Chad was making completely different sounds. He's soft. My only successful punch to his stomach was filled with all my rage, and he's lying on the floor, gasping for air, crawling away from me. I press the call button on my phone. 911. What is your emergency? Do you need fire, medical, or police assistance? I need the police. I'm in my house and some guy is trying to kill me. He has my shotgun. Help! Call the police, quick! I threw her phone on the floor, and I could hear the 911 dispatcher talking to me through the speaker. I raised the 12-gauge shotgun and shouted, "Oh my God, don't shoot me!" Then I slammed the phone with my heel. It turned off. When I walked past her, she grabbed my leg. I dragged her behind me. She was sobbing, begging me through her tears. "Please, no, no, oh God, please!" Step, drag, step, drag. I started to circle the bed. Step, drag, step, drag. I shook my leg, throwing her off. She collapsed on the floor, defeated, her sobs turning to moans. She sounded like an old hound with its leg caught in a trap. I pointed my 12-gauge shotgun at him, holding the barrel in my hand. I saw hope come into his eyes. I smiled as he desperately grabbed the gun. He grabbed the butt, his finger on the trigger. I pulled the gun toward me, tilting the barrel to the left, wrenching the gun from his hands, forcing his finger to pull the trigger. I felt several pellets graze my left arm. I could feel and smell the burning barrel on my hands. Then I used my favorite 12-gauge shotgun as a club and began beating him. After the third blow to the head, he lost consciousness. I spread his legs and used my 12-gauge shotgun as a golf club. I turned to her. She was breathing heavily. Her screams had stopped. Her eyes were wide open. She was in shock. Fear was written all over her face. We looked into each other's eyes. I threw the gun across the room, hearing the front door being broken down. I raised my right hand. My left sleeve was covered in blood. "Police! Police! Police!" they shouted, bursting into the bedroom with their guns drawn. I shouted, "I called you!" He tried to kill me. I pointed to Chad, who was lying unconscious on the floor. She didn't contradict me. He couldn't refute my words. Paramedics bandaged my arm with gauze and applied ointment to the burns on my hands. The police tried to piece together what had happened. We were in my living room. I could see journalists gathering on the lawn in front of the house. It was time for questions and answers. I was in my house. It was my gun in my bedroom. My story held up well. The physical evidence supported my version that he had found my gun and tried to kill me. I lunged at him and grabbed the barrel of the gun. The 911 operator's recording seemed to back up my story. I really had no reason to go to the hospital. It was different with Chad. He really needed to go to the hospital. She, in their opinion, did not need medical attention. However, as an accomplice to attempted murder, she had to go downtown. The police took her in for processing. "All right, Mr. Smith. I believe we have everything we need for today. Did you give the police all your contact information?" the detective asked, looking up from his notebook. "Yes, sir," I replied in a tired voice. The adrenaline had long since worn off, and I was exhausted. It had been a rough night. "We'll be done soon. You need to stay out of the bedroom tonight." I shook my head. "That's no problem. I'm not staying here. I think I'll find a hotel for the night." "Okay. We'll have security at the house when we're done." He handed me his business card. Some time ago, I knew there was a problem. I had no idea what it was. Something was wrong. I couldn't figure out what it was, So I became alert. I just watched. Gradually, I was able to rule out all possible causes until I was left with the distinct feeling that the problem was related to her. In fact, it was the little things she did that gave me clues. Her reactions were telling. At least now I know what to look for. About a month ago, she was pretty good at not leaving any traces. She didn't hide anything. No strange phone calls. No messages that could be traced. However, When I started to really pay attention, a whole series of things became crystal clear. Her reactions were very instructive. She was spending more and more time with Samantha. Mutual friends introduced us to Samantha and her husband, Maurice, about a year ago. Maurice was pretty quiet and a bit feminine. He had a wicked sense of self-deprecating humor. At least when we were together, he made me laugh. We weren't friends, but I would have dinner with them or join them for barbecues in the backyard. Personally, I wasn't impressed with Samantha. She was bossy and dismissive of Maurice. But who was I to judge someone else's relationship? It wasn't my business. Samantha also had a tendency to talk down to me. I didn't like that. I made a few comments to her, but Samantha was stubborn, I have to admit. She and Samantha hit it off right away. Every time we got together, the girls would start chatting non-stop. Eventually, instead of getting together for dinner every now and then, she and Samantha started having lunch or girls' nights out about once a week. 3 weeks ago, I bought some bugs, 1 for her car, 4 for her handbags. She had way more than 4 handbags, but I picked the ones she used the most. They were really small, digital, with a radio transmitter. They looked like 2 pins stuck together. They were easy to hide. I listened in on yesterday's lunch. They were at Samantha's house. Samantha talked endlessly about her bull. Samantha had one, and she wanted to share it with her. It took me a while to figure out what they were talking about. Oh my God, I was so angry when I figured it out. From their little conversation, I realized that she had been cheating on me and would continue to cheat on me. I listened as they planned to destroy our wedding vows, which apparently had not yet been broken. But these bitches had their sights set on them. I had lived with this woman for more than half my life. Listening to their conversation, I realized I didn't know her at all. It seemed like Samantha enjoyed humiliating Maurice. They planned to do the same to me. I just couldn't understand how she could be so cruel to me. I listened to them chat while Maurice waited on them. I could hear the sexual excitement in her voice. I sat at my desk, honestly in shock. I probably just shut down. I realized that I really needed time and space to get away from my wife. I couldn't help but cancel my meeting with that bitch as soon as I saw her. After I threw up in the trash can in my office, I asked my assistant to call her and tell her I needed to leave town. My assistant said she would pack my things before she left for lunch with Samantha so I could pick them up on my way to the airport. 2 weeks ago. The last week had been tough. I thought and thought about the whole mess. How could she even imagine that I would put up with such shit? I don't understand. And that bitch Samantha was in on it. And she confessed her love for me every time she talked to Samantha. What the hell? She wasn't right in the head. I had to think. Maybe she had health problems? But even if she did, they would come after me. I had to protect myself. If I just barged in there, people would die and I would spend too much time in prison. Hell, in my condition, I'd be lucky if I didn't get executed. So that wasn't the way to go. No, I had to eliminate the threat for good. I knew it would be bloody. She likes the world I've created for us with my hard work. She likes her country club membership. She likes being in that circle. She likes having money. She likes everyone believing she's Miss Perfect. I've lived with her for 25 years. I know how she really works. I had to work hard to look like a dim-witted fool when I was around her. My anger toward her helped me keep my cool. I'm going to bring hell down on her. In actions, it's all about timing. It's not time yet. I used her computer to buy another $2 million life insurance policy, with double payout in case of crime or accident, naming her as the sole beneficiary. Last week, apparently her bull's name is Chad Coulis. I found out everything I could about Chad. Stanford grad, MBA from Wharton. Rich daddy, in politics. He was on the rise. It was perfectly clear that he was completely innocent. He wasn't married, never had been. He'd been engaged a few times, at least according to the gossip column on Backdoor.com. I looked at a few photos of him, watched a couple of his rallies. So he was in politics. I believed it. As they say, any publicity is good publicity. I wondered if that was true. This week, It felt like the case was coming to a head. She was tense and excited. Thanks to her wallets, I was in the loop. I spent most of my time in a slow-boiling rage. As far as I could tell, old Chad had Samantha and possibly 2 other women he was hunting. They were all married. The country club was his favorite hunting ground. It seemed like they were all on Chad's re-election finance committee, too. I also learned that Chad was planning a foursome at Samantha's house the following week. I found and hired a very desperate and despicable man. He broke into Samantha's house and planted listening devices there. I paid him in cash. He was in a hurry to leave town because he was flying out of the country. It was a win-win situation for everyone. Monday, she's climbing the walls. She's racked with guilt. She almost fucked Bob to death. Tuesday. Now I have a video of Chad with 3 women. Maurice and the husband of one of the other women were there as chaperones. The video and audio recording were amazing. It was like you were there in the room with them. The verbal abuse the maids were subjected to was beyond belief. There was a lot of explicit language, a lot of bragging about how great he is. Chad is very talkative. He enjoyed playing the circus ringmaster. Chad mentioned a lot of names. He bragged about corporate jets and how he was going to be king. It was all very painful and twisted. The cameras caught everything. Tonight, she's nervous. She broke a plate in the kitchen. I knew she was planning to talk to me tonight. Chad was supposed to come over, and they were going to explain everything to me. Chad was 32 years old. He was an athlete, a bodybuilder. All I can say about her mind is that she must have just lost her mind. I knew it wasn't blackmail. Samantha's stories about sex with Chad were like a siren song to her, I guess. I'm as ready as I can be. Let's get started. It started at 8 p.m. They planned to put me in jail. There was a divorce that would have ruined me. They were happy to blackmail me with made-up nonsense, to get me tangled up in legal knots. There was also political pressure that Chad would have put on me, even threats from the police and the tax authorities who would have followed me everywhere. Physical intimidation was on the list, and if all that didn't work, they would just take what they wanted and screw me over anyway, considering me a weakling. I hear Chad opening the front door. I'm sitting in the living room, drinking beer and watching the game. I go out the back door. It was kind of funny sitting in the yard watching them search the whole house for me. Chad was furious. Finally, they gave up. Then they went upstairs to my bedroom. I gave them a couple of minutes, finished my beer, and then quietly went back into the house. I left the gun by the garage door, grabbed it, and went upstairs. The next morning, I woke up in an unfamiliar bed. My arm hurt. The shock and drugs had worn off. My hands hurt too. It all came back to me. I felt the rage again. It energized me. I turned on the TV. Less than a minute later, the news reported on Chad. He had been hospitalized and arrested for attempted murder. Statements poured out of Chad's office. Fake news. It was a setup. Blah, blah, blah. Significantly, no one from his political party said a word. When asked about it in the media, they all evaded the question. I went to the bathroom, took the bandages off my hands, and jumped in the shower. The number on the display matched the detective's business card, so I knew it wasn't a call about the car warranty. "Hello," I said. "Mr. Smith, this is Detective Green." "Hello, Detective. How can I help you?" "Could you come in this afternoon to talk?" "Sure. I don't think I'll be able to get out of work today." "Would 2 o'clock be okay?" "Yes, I can do that. See you then, Detective." "Thank you for coming, Mr. Smith," said the lead detective. "Sure, no problem. I'm still in shock over what happened. I hope you have some answers for me. I don't understand any of this," I said, desperation in my voice. "How do you know Chad Koulis?" "I don't know him, except that I saw him on the news, where he was acting like a stupid loudmouth." "Why did you believe he attacked you?" asked the detective. "From what I can tell, he's sleeping with my wife. I didn't even know he was in the house until I walked into the bedroom." "What happened?" "I heard his voice when I came in from the backyard. I followed the sound of his voice to my bedroom. They were both naked, and he had my shotgun, and she was on her knees. I grabbed my wife's phone and had already dialed 911. He started yelling at me, grabbed the gun, and started waving it at me. I pressed the call button. Then he pointed the gun right at my face, and I lunged at him. I caught him off guard. I grabbed the barrel and pushed him away. To be honest, it all happened so fast, but that's all I can remember. I paused and rubbed my hand. I continued. I believe he was shocked when he missed. I grabbed the barrel, wrenched it out of his hands, and used it against him until he stopped attacking me. You broke his genitals to stop him? The detective asked with a smirk. No, he was unconscious. It was for me. I just couldn't help myself. But I only hit him once. That little bit of truth struck a chord with the detective. He could imagine himself in the same situation, fighting back. It made Bob more human in the cop's eyes. The cop saw Bob as one of the good guys and swallowed all his lies. Although the detective was a good man, subconsciously he believed Bob's story. As the investigation progressed, his natural desire for confirmation gave more weight to things that corroborated Bob's story. The following week, Chad's allies finally began to gather around him. Chad's father was forced to pull a pile of money out from under his mattress and start handing it out left and right. Suddenly, a multitude of chattering voices spoke on the television. It was a setup. The problem clearly lay with another tribe, and with Antifa, and with BLM, with socialists. They started saying there was no gun, no husband, no wife, no house. Hell, there wasn't even a town. Then the chattering voices turned on Bob. He was the problem. He was the problem. Listen, when Bob was 17, he got caught with a joint, a drug dealer, and a liberal. It's all fake news. It never happened. TV commentators were losing their minds. Members of Chad's political party began popping their heads out like groundhogs. They looked around, trying to figure out which way the wind was blowing. Many fingers were raised in the air. She was still in custody. The media show surrounding the bail hearing was in full swing. Chad's hearing was scheduled for Thursday at 11 a.m. On Wednesday morning, the media supporting Chad were on high alert. The other side was running wild. Ratings were skyrocketing. By noon, statements and loud speeches had reached a fever pitch. The situation was becoming increasingly heated. By the start of the evening, shows at 7 p.m., pitchforks were being handed out and torches lit. Some considered Chad a righteous man. What's more, several religious leaders whom no one had ever heard of were being asked serious questions on live television. Thursday, 8 a.m. Several news departments received emails. The emails contained a link. The media have special folders for such emails. The link led to a website where all 6 hours of Chad with his harem and female servants were posted. There were shots taken from several angles. The website had several separate links to the most salacious moments in case anyone wanted to skip straight to the most interesting parts. At 8:10 a.m., the links began to appear on the internet. More emails were sent to politicians and corporate sponsors. The Wall Street Journal was the first to report on the story. Commentators buried their heads in the sand. By 10 a.m., Chad's political director, his campaign manager, and his campaign finance director announced their resignations. A tsunami of truly dirty shit hit Chad. Needless to say, Chad did not get bail. Panic gripped the country club harem, as the media dubbed Chad's 3 wives. The media mercilessly attacked the weak-willed maids, but they were no match for the memes that flooded social media. The scandal rocked the country club to its wealthy foundations. The media attention was quite brutal. Stories of wealth and bad behavior spread throughout high society. Many began to denounce each other. Many club members closed their homes and flew to their other properties. Chad's whole world turned into a nightmare. He was left alone. It was like rats leaving a sinking ship. Everyone who was in any way connected to Chad rushed to save themselves from being caught up in the fallout. Even his father left. His son was a toxic mess. Several investigations were announced against Chad. She was dressed in orange, which really wasn't her color, and in chains sitting at a table in an interrogation room. She hadn't spoken since that night. She looked sad and pitiful. Her children hadn't called or written. Neither had her relatives. She just sat there in her cell. From her cell, she could hear the TV in the common area. As soon as the prisoners and guards realized who she was, they switched it to a 24-hour political news channel. The people on TV knew no shame. She had a court-appointed lawyer. The prosecutor came himself to offer her a deal. When she first looked into the prosecutor's eyes, she was shocked. He had the eyes of a predator. She was only important to him insofar as she was useful to him. The prosecutor was from a different political camp. Chad's case was a godsend for him. He was going to use it to the fullest. He coldly laid out the evidence of intent shown in the video, from Chad's own mouth, at his little party. They arrested the weak maids and the country club harem on charges of conspiracy. Then the prosecutor went through Bob's story step by step and the physical evidence that corroborated his account. He did not touch on issues related to the video, such as who installed the cameras and shared the video. He then laid out the charges he would bring against her. He then calculated how many years she would spend behind bars. He then offered her a deal. Bob filed for divorce. She was served in jail. He offered her a $1 settlement. Bob ultimately won by default when she failed to show up for the divorce hearing. The Chad tribe disowned him and then removed him from all of their resources. They removed him from photos using Photoshop. The Soviet secret police couldn't hold a candle to these guys. Bob experiences stress and depression from time to time due to various things. He was so happy for so long that the shock of loneliness was difficult for him to overcome. Lately, Bob has been a little bitter. But Bob has no regrets. He did what he had to do to get rid of the threats for good. He sleeps well. He has a good relationship with his children. He is now a grandfather. Bob has won several lawsuits and has a substantial bank account. Bob is rebuilding his life, but it will never be the same as it was before. Bob sold his house. Bob is ready to move on. Bob isn't trying to impress anyone. Bob isn't looking back. Bob has accepted what he has. He knows the good things in his life, and that's enough for him. Because Bob knows he has everything he needs and wants.